Right now, somewhere in America, a tiny copper-colored penny is sitting unnoticed in a jar, a dresser drawer, or the bottom of someone's glove box. And that single penny, that ordinary-looking piece of pocket change, is secretly worth over $1 million. Not because it's made of gold, not because it's covered in diamonds, but because it's one of the rarest, most mysterious mistakes the U.S. Mint ever made. A mistake so slight, so invisible to the casual eye, that most people will never realize what they're holding. And the year stamped on that penny is 1990. Right next to the little letter D. Now imagine that penny is in your home right now. Let's talk about the 1990 D Lincoln penny that has coined collectors in absolute disbelief. Not all of them are valuable, of course. Billions were made. They were meant to be simple, everyday change. But a very small handful slipped out of the mint with a shocking flaw. A flaw that turned them into treasure. A flaw that turns a 1-cent coin into something that could change your life. Let's go back to 1990. A year of change. A year where technology was accelerating, music was shifting, and the world itself felt like it was turning a corner. But inside the Denver Mint, machines were pressing out penny after penny, one after another, almost like they were printing time itself. And in the middle of that production, something unexpected happened. Something the Mint never intended, something that shouldn't exist. You see, by 1990, pennies were supposed to be made mostly of zinc. Copper had become too expensive, so the Mint coated zinc blanks with a thin copper layer and pressed them into the familiar shape we know. But a few coins were struck using the wrong metal. Not zinc coated in copper, but solid copper, the old composition used before 1982. And they slipped into circulation without anybody noticing, because copper pennies weigh more. They feel different. They ring different when you drop them. And they look different when you tilt them in the light. And the number of 1990 D pennies struck in solid copper instead of plated zinc is so small that most collectors will never see one in their lifetime. Yet when one surfaces, collectors are willing to pay life-changing money. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but over $1 million in the right condition. Now, here's where the story gets even stranger. These coins don't look exotic. They don't look shiny. They don't announce themselves. They hide. They blend. They wait. They sit quietly while people walk past something incredible. Imagine the emotional weight of that. A coin that could change someone's life, tossed in a gas station cup holder, forgotten, breathe. This is where things get exciting. First, pick up your 1990 D penny and look at the color. A copper penny has a richer, deeper brown or red tone. Zinc pennies sometimes show tiny gray spots or flaking because the thin copper plating can wear. If yours looks unusually warm, like old copper wire, keep it aside. Second, weigh it. This is the most important step. A standard 1990 D penny should weigh around 2.5 grams. But the rare one, the one struck in the old metal, weighs about 3.11 grams. It's heavier. It feels more real, more solid, almost like it has a heartbeat. You don't need fancy equipment. A cheap digital scale online is enough. If your penny comes close to 3.11 grams, your heart may skip a beat. And it should, because now we're talking about a coin with the potential to be worth over $1 million. Look at the edges. Zinc pennies sometimes show tiny breaks or cracks where the plating has worn. Copper pennies stay smooth as they age. If the edge looks clean, even, and strong, hold on to that coin like it's alive. Now, make sure the D Mint mark looks correct. It should be clean, not smeared, not doubled, not blurry. The rare $1 million coins are usually well struck. They look intentional. The mistake is the metal, not the stamp. Pause for a moment. Picture the emotions if your coin matches these signs. That tiny rush in your chest. That whisper in your mind that says, what if this is the one? That feeling is why collectors love this world. It's the thrill of hidden treasure. The modern gold rush. Hope disguised as pocket change. Think about how many times people ignored coins like this. People who never bothered to check. People who tossed pennies aside because it's just a penny. And those same pennies are now being discovered in old jars, estate sales, inherited collections, boxes and basements. And every time one is found, the story hits the community like lightning. Someone who had nothing suddenly has options, choices, opportunity. And that is the magic of this hobby. Hope is always one coin away. Now imagine showing this penny to a dealer. Their expression changing. Their voice getting quiet. The room feeling smaller. A moment where the world pauses because value just became real. A coin like this isn't just money. It's a doorway. It's possibility. It's proof that something small can still hold enormous power. Yet there's something deeply emotional about that. A penny is the lowest form of currency. The coin most people don't even bend down to pick up. The coin people leave on sidewalks. And yet, in this rare case, that penny rises above everything else. It becomes the hero. This is why collectors stay passionate. Because moments like this don't just happen in museums or auction houses. They happen in kitchens, in garages, in childhood coin jars. They happen to ordinary people living ordinary lives. This isn't a story meant for someone else. It's a story that could belong to you. So go look. Go check your coins. Go through the jars, the drawers, the boxes of change you've kept for no reason. We are living in a moment where people every day discover that something small, something unnoticed, something humble, has unbelievable value. Not let this chance slip by. You're holding a penny. Just a simple 1981 Lincoln penny. Something we've all seen 1,000 times, tossed in pockets, church donation plates, drive-through change cups, gas station counters, everywhere. But what if I told you, one of these ordinary-looking pennies has sold for over $1.1 million? Not because it's old, not because it's gold, but because of something so small, so subtle, that most people would never see it in a million years. Many of these pennies are still out there. In jars, in drawers, in coffee cans, in dusty bowls behind Grandpa's recliner. And the reason collectors are desperate right now is because this coin comes from a year most people overlook entirely, the year 1981. 1 year before the entire U.S. penny design was changed forever. 1 year before the mint switched to cheap materials that made future pennies lighter, weaker, and, well, less special. 1981 was the end of an era. The final year the penny was struck in nearly pure copper before the new zinc core design took over. But here's where the mystery deepens. Because in the Denver Mint, where tens of millions of pennies were struck in 1981, something unusual happened. Something that shouldn't have happened. Something that created one of the rarest Lincoln cents collectors have ever hunted. A small number of 1981 pennies were struck using a die made for proof coins. Proof dies are supposed to be reserved for special collector's sets. These dies create sharper details, deeper mirror-like surfaces, and nearly perfect strike details. These coins shine differently. They look alive. But somehow, whether through mistake, oversight, or a quiet intentional decision nobody can explain, a proof die was used on regular circulating coins. And those coins, those few that slipped into general circulation, are nearly impossible to spot unless you know exactly what to look for. And that's what makes this story so thrilling. Because it turns an ordinary penny into a treasure hunt where the prize is literally over $1 million. Let that sink in. A penny worth more than a house, more than retirement, more than college, more than some people earn in a lifetime. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you find one. Not on eBay, not in a shop, but in your own house. Imagine you're sitting at the kitchen table on a quiet evening. You spill that old jar of coins you've had for years, and something catches your eye. A shine, a detail, a feeling. Your heart starts to race. Because suddenly, every story you've heard about lucky finds doesn't feel like fantasy anymore. It feels real, possible, within reach. Collectors have waited decades for these coins to resurface. And the few known examples that have been discovered have gone for extraordinary amounts, with top-condition pieces reaching over $1 million. And no one knows how many still exist. No one. It could be 5. It could be 50. It could be hundreds hiding in plain sight. The key is knowing how to identify it. Let's slow down and breathe for just a moment. Because this isn't about luck. This isn't about guessing. This is about knowledge. And knowledge is the one thing that can turn an everyday person into the discoverer of a lifetime treasure. Start by holding the coin under good lighting. Tilt it slightly. A regular 1981 penny will have typical circulation coin features. Average detail, average luster, average color. But the special one? It looks different. The strike is sharper. Lincoln's hair will show crisp, individual hairlines rather than a rounded blur. The bow tie under his chin will have strong, sharp edges. The letters in Liberty will stand clean and deep, not shallow. The surfaces might show a light mirrored sheen, especially on the background behind Lincoln's portrait. Flip it over. The Lincoln Memorial columns should look defined, not muddy. The spacing between them should be clean and straight. Now, here's the critical detail collectors use as the final test. Look at the D mint mark. On normal pennies, the mint mark looks stamped, sometimes a bit crude. But on the rare ones struck with the special proof die, the D is sharper, more refined, perfectly shaped. It looks intentional, not casual, almost sculpted. This is the moment where the heart catches in your throat. Because when you see that sharper D, your life might be about to change. But let's reset for a moment. Because we've covered a lot of detail. And right now, your curiosity is building. You might even be looking around the room thinking about where your coin jars are. That's good. Hold on to that feeling. The official records don't explain it. No memo, no report, no explanation. But longtime mint insiders have whispered about it. Sometimes dies were moved between facilities. Sometimes extra dies were used to test strike pressure. Sometimes special dies were accidentally sent into production by mistake. And sometimes someone simply didn't care enough to stop it. But what they didn't realize is that they weren't just minting coins. They were minting legends. And those legends are now caught in the world's largest treasure hunt. Picture a collector who has spent decades searching. Estate sales, pawn shops, coin roll hunts, hours of sorting change under a lamp. And then one night, he sees it. He turns a penny over, and something feels different. His hands start to shake. His breath catches. His voice cracks when he whispers to himself, "No, no way." That is the moment thousands of collectors in America are chasing right now. And it's the moment you could experience too. Here is the truth. The highest value examples, the ones that hit that $1 million mark, are those in pristine, near-perfect condition. But here's the surprising part. Even circulated examples, coins that have been used, coins that have some wear, can still be worth tens of thousands. And in some cases, hundreds of thousands. Meaning, even a penny that doesn't look perfect could still be life-changing. Think about the emotional impact of that. A coin most people ignore. A coin sitting in jars across America. A coin millions of people have touched without ever knowing what it was. There is something deeply poetic in that. The treasure has always been right in front of us. But only those who look, see. Now let's create the moment that matters most. I want you to imagine opening that drawer in your home tonight. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. Pulling out the coin jar. Dumping it onto the table. Running your fingers through the scattered coins. The clinking sound filling the room. The old copper smell rising one coin at a time. Flip it.is the strike sharp. Tilt it under the light. Your pulse picks up. Your breath gets shallow. Time slows down. Because this is real. Not a myth. Not a rumor. Not a story someone made up. These coins exist. And they are still out there. But because of one tiny detail that almost no one notices. Today, we're talking about the 1979 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. A coin that has quietly turned everyday people into instant millionaires. Picture this. A man in Colorado cleaning out an old coffee can that have been sitting on his shelf for 20 years. Just spare change. Nothing special. Pennies mostly. Some darkened from time. Some so scratched they barely looked like pennies at all. But buried in that pile was a single 1979 penny with a D under the date. He tossed it aside at first. After all, millions of pennies were minted that year. But something about the shine, something about the shape of the letters, made him pause. He took it to a coin shop just out of curiosity. And when the dealer saw it, he stopped breathing for a moment. That penny, forgotten in a coffee can, was worth more than most houses on his street. Now, before we rush ahead, let's set the mood. Close your eyes for just a moment. Think about your dresser drawers, your junk jars, the change in your car cup holder. Every single one of those coins has a history. Some traveled through cash registers, parking meters, pockets, and decades of everyday life. But one coin, just one, might be the difference between an ordinary day and the day everything changes. The 1979 D penny doesn't stand out at first glance. It looks like any other Lincoln cent copper coloring, Lincoln's profile, the familiar date, 1979. And under that date, the letter D for Denver. But here is where the story turns mysterious. Among the millions of pennies minted, a small handful were struck using a die that had a rare flaw. A flaw so precise, so subtle, that only collectors with a sharp eye noticed. The spacing of the date. The crispness of the mint mark. A level of sharp engraving that should not exist on an ordinary circulation penny. Some say it was an experimental die. Some say it was a test strike. Others whisper that it was a mint worker's quiet masterpiece, intentionally slipped into the world. No one knows for sure. That's part of the legend. And legends attract treasure hunters. Start by looking at the date, 1979. Just that. Make sure it hasn't been altered. No scratches near the numbers. Then look below the date for the D mint mark. It should be bold, sharp, and perfectly placed. Not faint, not crooked, not uneven. On ordinary 1979 D pennies, the D is softer, not deeply impressed. But on the valuable version, the D looks carved with precision, almost engraved, like it stands out from the coin itself. Now move your eyes to Lincoln's profile. The jawline and beard should be sharply defined, almost sculpted. The lines in his coat should look crisp, not worn or blurred. The fields of the coin, meaning the flat background areas, should appear smooth and even. Most importantly, look at the overall color and luster. The rare 1979 D penny has a bright, almost untouched sheen. It shouldn't look dull or dark. Many of the valuable examples were never circulated. They were kept aside by accident or stored away for decades by someone who had no idea what they were saving. Let's reset again. Because the emotional weight of this is real. Most of us have lived our lives believing that small things stay small. A penny is just a penny. But sometimes the smallest things carry the heaviest stories. And sometimes value hides where we least expect it. Imagine the journey of your own spare change. Maybe you dropped pennies on the ground as a kid. Maybe your parents kept jars of them in the kitchen. Maybe your grandfather had a metal tin full of coins he collected from daily life. Back then, no one knew that one particular year, one particular mint, would hold a secret. Those jars, those tins, those pockets, they are time capsules, because only a tiny number were struck with that precision die, and fewer still survived in near-perfect condition. Serious collectors are willing to pay over $1 million for one because they are nearly impossible to find. They are the treasure hunter's dream. A small coin with a massive reward. $1 million. Life-changing. And most shocking of all, they are still out there. Think about that. Somewhere, right now, someone may be spending one at a grocery store without even knowing. A cashier may toss one into the register. A child may drop one on the sidewalk. That's the beauty and the tragedy of rare coins. They hide in plain sight. Reset your attention. Because now, I want you to imagine discovering it yourself. You're sorting change. Maybe bored. Maybe just cleaning up. And suddenly, you stop. There it is. 1979, D mint mark. Sharp letters. Bright surface. Perfect strike. Your heart skips. Your hands shake. And for a moment, time freezes. That moment is possible. It is real. It has already happened to people just like you. Not experts. Not professional collectors. Ordinary people. People who just paid attention. Let's make this personal. Think about someone you know who could use a miracle. A friend. A family member. Maybe even you. Life-changing money doesn't always come through the lottery or an inheritance. Sometimes, it comes from the most unlikely place imaginable. That is why stories like this matter. Not because of the coin itself, but because of what it represents. Hope. Possibility. A reminder that luck does not always look grand or dramatic. Sometimes, it looks like a penny. Now, here is one final detail that could make all the difference. Condition is everything. Even if your 1979 D penny has the right mint mark shape and sharp design, scratches, wear, or discoloration can reduce the value. So handle your coins carefully. Hold them by the edges. Never clean them. Cleaning a coin can destroy thousands of dollars of value instantly. If you think you might have the valuable variety, take it to a certified coin dealer or have it graded by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Grading turns maybe into certainty that we're nearing the end now. But the story doesn't end when this video ends. The story continues in your pocket, your kitchen drawer, your old jars, the back of your glove box, the garage containers you haven't opened in years. Just a single, ordinary-looking 1998 D Lincoln penny, secretly worth over $1.3 million. And the wildest part? Most people who've touched one never even realized it. Let's go back for a moment. Picture this scene. A small town in the late 1990s. Kids trading Pokemon cards. Gas was barely over $1. The world felt simpler. The US Mint was pushing out pennies by the hundreds of millions. And hidden among all those coins was a mistake. A quiet, silent error that nobody noticed. A tiny flaw that turned a penny into treasure. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a myth. It was a genuine minting mistake. And the number of people who caught it? Very, very few. Which is why, today, this one penny has become something more than just metal. It's a golden ticket hidden inside everyday life. Take a breath and think about that. You've probably held thousands of pennies. Maybe tens of thousands. You toss them in jars. You sweep them off the table. You ignore them in drive-through trays. But if you had this penny, even once, and you didn't look closely enough, it slipped right through your fingers. It comes down to one rare, beautiful, blink you miss it detail. A small difference on the back of the coin. A spacing mistake between two letters. The letters A and M in the word America. On most pennies from 1998, the A and the M are pressed close together. Almost touching. That's normal. That's common. That's the penny you see every day. Those letters are separated. There's a clear gap, easy to see once you know to look. It's called the wide AM. And here's the twist. The wide AM wasn't supposed to be on the 1998 D penny. The Denver Mint used the wrong design die. A reverse intended for proof coins slipped into regular production. A quiet error. A hidden secret. Only a microscopic fraction of 1998 D pennies carry that mistake. We're talking possibly a few dozen. Maybe fewer surviving today. That's why collectors are willing to pay nearly unbelievable prices. That is why one of these coins can sell for over $1 million. But take a pause here. Let this really land. This isn't a jewel locked in a museum. Not a piece of gold buried underground. This is something someone could hand to you and change at the gas station. You could find this in a pile of coins at the bottom of your cup holder. You could find it in an old jar your grandfather used to keep by the window. That's the thrill of coin hunting. That's why collectors never stop looking. Let's reset for a moment. I want you to picture a hand. Maybe your hand, holding this penny between your fingers. The coin is dull. Nothing flashy. Copper showing a little age. And yet, there's a quiet electricity in realizing that sometimes the world hides treasure in ordinary things. Look at the date. You want 1998. And below the date, you want the small letter D. That's the Denver Mint mark. Without that, it's not the one. Flip the penny over. Look at the word America. Focus on the A and the M. On the regular penny, they're close. Almost touching. But on the rare version, there's noticeable space. A gap. A separation. If you can slide even the imaginary point of a needle between the A and the M when you look closely, you may be holding something very rare. While you're on the back of the coin, look at the initials FG near the Lincoln Memorial. On genuine wide AM errors, those initials are sharper and slightly shifted. Some people spend years searching through thousands of coins just to see that one detail. And if you're thinking, surely someone has found all of them by now, the answer is no. Because think about every desk drawer, every coffee can in every garage, every pocket, every old coin jar that hasn't been touched in decades. The farmers, the factory workers, the families who have pennies sitting in forgotten corners of their homes. These coins are still out there. A man in Ohio once brought a few old jars of change to a coin shop. Just something he'd been meaning to get rid of. He wasn't a collector. He wasn't hunting treasure. He just wanted to clean out the kitchen. The shop owner looked through the jars casually. And then he stopped. He froze. He held one coin up to the light. And in that moment, everything changed. That forgotten penny jar turned into a life-changing moment. A penny worth over $1 million. All because of a tiny gap between the A and the M. This is different. This feels earned. This feels personal. This feels like destiny hidden in plain sight. And there's something almost poetic about it. The lowest denomination coin in our currency. The one we overlook. The one we leave on countertops because it's just a penny. Yet that 1 cent can be worth more than a house. More than a college education. More than a retirement fund. Now think about your life. The times you've been close to something valuable, something meaningful, but didn't notice. Sometimes the things with the greatest worth are the things we overlook. Sometimes the smallest things matter most. And when you start paying attention, your world changes. Because once you know what to look for, every penny becomes a mystery waiting to be solved. Let's talk value for a moment. A verified 1998 D-wide AM penny has sold for over $1 million in private collector circles. That's not hype. That's not rumor. That is real money. Life-changing money. $1 million money. Collectors don't just want this coin. They crave it. They hunt for it. They will pay for it. Because rarity isn't just about numbers. It's about meaning. It's about the story behind the mistake. The accident. The anomaly. The moment history slipped up and left behind a breadcrumb for someone curious enough to find it. Now, one more reset. I want you to imagine going to your coin jar right after this. Pouring the coins out. The sound of pennies clattering on a table. The weight of possibility. The quiet excitement rising in your chest. You look closely, slowly, carefully. You examine each penny, one at a time, searching for that one tiny gap between the A and the M. Coin collectors aren't just hobbyists. They are treasure hunters, archivists, story keepers, dreamers who believe that history hides gifts in everyday life. A penny you've probably seen 1,000 times before. Dull, brown, ordinary. And yet, that same exact coin has sold for over $1 million. A 1993 D. Lincoln penny. A coin that should have been just another piece of everyday pocket change. But instead, for one collector, it became life-changing. This is the story of the 1993 D. $1 million penny hiding in plain sight, the one nearly everyone overlooks. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to identify it, where to look for it, and why collectors are desperately searching for it right now. But first, let's slow down and set the scene. Back in 1993, nobody thought much of pennies. People tossed them in jars, glove compartments, junk drawers. They rolled under car seats and got lost in couch cushions. The Denver Mint struck over 6 billion pennies that year. 6 billion. Nothing rare about that. But within that enormous ocean of coins, a few slipped through the cracks. Mistakes, rarities, accidents, coins produced on the wrong metal. Coins struck not on the cheap zinc planchets used since 1982, but on the older solid copper blanks left over from the past. A tiny handful, maybe only a few. The kind of error that should have been caught, but someone was tired. Someone wasn't looking closely. Someone let history slip into circulation. And that's where the mystery begins. A coin collector years later is searching through change, the quiet kind of person who actually looks instead of spending blindly. He picks up a 1993 D penny. Something feels different. The color, the weight, the sound when he drops it gently on a wooden table. Pennies after 1982 weigh about 2.5 grams. But this one weighed 3.11 grams. Solid copper weight. Pre-1982 weight. The wrong metal for the year. A minting error that shouldn't exist, and yet, it did. That penny sold for over $1.4 million. Attention reset. Let's talk about why that matters. See, the mint changed the composition of pennies in 1982. Instead of solid copper, they switched to copper-plated zinc to save money. So any penny made after 1982 should be zinc, not copper. So if you find any post-1982 penny that weighs 3.11 grams, you may be holding something special. Now, before you run to a drawer, let's walk through this carefully. Because there's more than one type of rare 1993 D penny, not just the copper planchet error. There are double dies, off-center strikes, high-grade uncirculated examples. There are stories of everyday people pulling one from a change jar and changing their life forever. Let's reset again. Because it's time to actually learn how to spot the $1 million version. Take a simple digital scale. You can find one online for about 10 bucks. Place the penny on the scale. If it reads around 2.5 grams, that's normal. But if it reads around 3.11 grams, that's your first red flag. The second thing to check is the sound. A copper penny makes a ringing tone when gently tapped on a hard surface. A zinc one makes a dull, dead sound. It's subtle, but once you hear it, you know. Third, look closely under magnification at the date and mint mark. The Denver Mint mark sits just below the year. On the rare examples, the strike is crisp and bold. No mush, no fading. If the coin is extremely sharp with almost no scratches, that's when grading companies get interested. And when grading companies get interested, the price skyrockets. But there's another variety lurking within the 1993 D series. A double die reverse. Look at the lettering on the back. The words 1 cent. The United States of America. If any of the letters appear thick, shadowed, or doubled, even slightly, that's another sign you may be holding something valuable. Some doubled dies from this year have sold for tens of thousands of dollars even without the copper error. Now, take a breath. Because there's something emotional about this. Something hopeful. This isn't just a hunt for money. It's a hunt for possibility. Most people pass through life believing treasures only exist in museums, locked behind glass. But the real treasures, the ones that change lives, they're often hiding where nobody bothers to look. In forgotten jars. In inherited old collections. At yard sales where the seller shrugs and says, just take it for $1. In the very coins we touch every day without thinking, there's something deeply human about bending over a handful of change and wondering what might be inside. It's the same spark that has driven explorers, archaeologists, treasure hunters for thousands of years. The belief that something small, something insignificant, could hold enormous meaning. Attention reset. Let's talk numbers. A normal circulated 1993 D penny is worth 1 cent. Maybe 2 cents if someone is in a generous mood. A nice uncirculated one might fetch a couple dollars. That one sold for over $1 million. And if another surfaced today, untouched, uncleaned, in perfect high-grade condition, it could sell for even more. $1 million. From a penny. These coins don't get found by professional dealers. They don't get discovered by museums. They get found by regular people who still believe in checking their change. Gather every penny you have. Every jar, every pocket, every drawer. Step 2. Sort out the 1993 pennies. You're looking specifically for the ones with a D mint mark. It takes patience. It takes curiosity. It takes a willingness to believe that your life can change from something small. And that's why this story hits so deeply. Because the person who found that $1 million penny wasn't wealthy. They weren't a professional coin dealer. They were someone who just decided to look. And the world changed because of that choice. The next life-changing discovery might not happen in a bank vault. It might not happen at an auction house. It might happen in your kitchen, your garage, your pocket. The rarest treasures in America are still in circulation. Still being handed over counters. Still being dropped on sidewalks. Still being forgotten in drawers. And someone is going to find the next one. But what if I told you that one of those pennies, one that looks just like every other copper coin you've seen thousands of times, could be worth $1.5 million? And not in some far-fetched, rumor-filled way. I mean right now, in the real world, quietly hiding in pockets, coin jars, and dresser drawers across America. Because this is the story of the 1994 D. Lincoln penny that changed the lives of a few lucky collectors and could still change yours. But the reason this coin is so valuable is wrapped in a mystery inside the U.S. Mint itself. A mistake, a secret, and a series of events that nobody expected. Let's start with the moment most collectors don't even think about. The manufacturing of the dies. The pieces of steel that physically stamp the design into the metal. In 1994, something went wrong at the Denver Mint. There were several reports of premature die wear, misalignment, and even accidental use of experimental die finishing techniques. Most of that went unnoticed, except for one batch of pennies. A small batch. A whisper of a run. So small, the Mint didn't even officially record it as unique. But collectors did. They started seeing 1994 D pennies that looked different. Sharper in some places, distorted in others. A doubling effect. A dramatic one. On the date. On the letters. On Lincoln's profile itself. These weren't normal machine doubling coins that come from vibration or bounce. These were true double dies. A legitimate, accidental second strike during the die-making process that created a coin unlike any other. But before we go further, imagine how many of these coins have been tossed, spent, ignored. Someone bought a soda with one of these. Someone used one in a laundromat. Someone dropped one in the crack of a car seat and forgot about it for 20 years. And someone else, someone lucky, took the time to really look. This is where your story may begin. Take a breath. Reset your attention. Because the next 30 seconds might be the part that changes everything for you. To identify this coin, you don't need special tools. You don't need a microscope. You don't even need perfect lighting. What you need is patience. And your eyes. The D mint mark under the date. Now slowly tilt the coin under a light. You're not looking for scratches. You're looking for doubling. Specifically, focus on 4 key areas. The word liberty. The letters should appear doubled, like a shadow behind the real strike. Lincoln's eye. Many known examples show a distinct secondary outline. It looks like he has a faint second eye overlapping the first, the date itself. The numbers may appear thicker than normal, almost like they were carved twice, and the mint mark. The D may appear slightly raised, oddly angled, or doubled in shape. Now here's where it gets interesting. Most doubled dies reveal themselves on older coins. But a 1994 doubled die is modern enough that millions of people have touched one without even realizing they should look closer. And that means your chances are real. Not imaginary. Not impossible. Real that if your heart is beating faster right now, that's not just excitement. That's hope. The kind of hope that only coin collectors truly understand. The hope that hidden treasure still exists in the everyday world. There is another layer to this story. A layer of pure mystery. Why were so few of these known examples documented? Why did the mint suddenly tighten up its die production right after this year? Why do some early mint reports for 1994 die experiments still appear missing or incomplete? The mint never intended these coins to leave the building. This was not supposed to be a public release. These coins slipped through, accidentally, quietly, and into circulation they went. The market responded. Fast. A verified example of the 1994 D double die penny has sold at auction for well over $1 million. Not theoretical value. Actual money. This is the kind of coin that makes headlines. The kind of coin that turns a quiet collector into the person everyone talks about. The kind of coin that makes someone's life different. But here's what matters most. Coins like this aren't found by dealers sitting in shops. They're found by people like you. People who look. People who stay curious. People who search the ordinary to find the extraordinary. That's why this isn't just a story about money. It's a story about the thrill of discovery, the pulse of possibility, the reminder that life still holds surprises. Let your imagination go somewhere for a moment. Picture opening your old penny jar. The dusty one. The one you always meant to dump into a Coinstar machine but never got around to. Picture your fingers digging through pennies. One after another. Hundreds of them. But your eyes are sharper now. You know what you're looking for. You know what this year means. You know why the D matters. You know why the doubling matters. You aren't just searching loose change. You're hunting treasure. There is no downside. The worst thing that can happen is you end up with pennies. But the best case scenario? You hold $1 million coin in your hand. And yes, it has already happened. More than once. The collectors who found these life-changing coins didn't have special training. They weren't professionals. They were ordinary people who took just a few minutes to look a little closer. That is what makes this powerful, because the opportunity is still out there, right now. In pockets, in rolls, in jars, in drawers, in glove compartments, in coffee cans forgotten in basements and attics, and maybe in yours. Take your time. Search carefully. Use patience. Use curiosity. Use the belief that something incredible could still happen to you.